Okay, so come to find out, you don't have to be an extremely wealthy individual or some sort of influencer or something in order to have a decent setup to do things like videos. It's really not all that difficult. And today I want to show you what I do specifically for our home church every single week. So with that, I want to show you some of the basic tools that I use in order to do these videos. The first thing we want to talk about is hardware. What do I actually use in terms of camera and microphone and things like that? Well, there's two different setups. I have what I like to call my decent looking setup, and then I have my lazy setup. What I am talking on right now is a Logitech webcam. It's just a standard webcam that hooks onto the top of your monitor. It's nothing fancy and it's just HD. You can get things that are 4K and whatnot, but if you're doing videos that are just going to go on YouTube for, again, like church purposes, or heaven forbid you're gonna put it on Facebook or something, then the reality is these sites compress your video quality down so much that having that 4K additional quality, all it's going to do is turn your computer that you're working on into a little space heater, because it's going to be running so hard trying to process that video, and then your files are going to be massive. Full HD is perfectly fine. If you want to go 4K, then go with God. It's perfectly fine. That being said, I have my webcam. It has a little built-in microphone in it, or I use this little Blue Yeti microphone right here. It comes with a little stand, and you can put that anywhere you want. But honestly, the quality out of these things is pretty darn good. So hopefully when I'm processing the audio for this, it doesn't sound like absolute trash. So webcam, you can use a built-in microphone, or you can get something like this and it'll sound a little bit better. But I mean, that's basically it for your actual video capture. Now, what's my nice setup? Because this is my lazy setup. My nice setup is this microphone right here. But then what I do is I have a DSLR camera. So it's a Nikon D5300. Now, these are things you can get on eBay used for pretty cheap. Really, you're just looking, if you want to go this route, you're looking for a camera that has what's called clean HDMI out. Now, what that means is that there's a little cable that's going to plug into the side of it, and with that cable you are going to get whatever the camera is looking at without any of the menus or stuff like that. It's something where typically manufacturers will include it on their spec sheet, but if it's not on the spec sheet, then typically you can ask the question of the manufacturer, the seller, whatever, and they'll tell you. So it's not that big of a deal. And you're going to run it through a little capture card, and that is what this little box is right here. So it's a little box that, you know, once again, you can get expensive ones. This is some made in China piece of crap that I got off of Amazon that has HDMI in, and then it has USB 3 out. That's what you're going to want. So what this allows you to do is to get your camera and plug it into here, and then get a USB cable and plug this into your computer, and your computer will pick up your camera as if it was a webcam. That is how you get that DSLR look. That's your nice setup. But these little guys right here, you can get stupid cheap ones. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with those. They usually burn out pretty quick. This guy right here, there's a bunch of different, I don't even know what brand this one is, but there's a bunch of ones you can find like this that have like the red metal plates on them. I've had pretty good luck with these guys right here, and they'll usually run about 35 to 40 bucks. So they're not that expensive, especially when you compare it to the really nice ones you can get online that can be sometimes starting out at like 100 and then going up, you know, from there to 150, 200 or more dollars for, you know, if you want to start getting into 2K and actual 4K. But that's it. I mean, that's pretty much all the hardware right there. Camera to box to computer and then a microphone, or you could just go webcam and do it all through that. It's easy as can be. So let's talk about software now. What you can see when we look at the window that is that way is actual OBS software. So this open broadcast software that a lot of people who do like Twitch streaming and YouTube streaming and stuff like that, this is software they use. It's free. You can find it. So OBS, tons of videos online about how to use it, but it's very simple software. So typically you only have to tell OBS to look at two things: a microphone and a video camera, and then you hit the big start recording button and it will do what's happening exactly right here. It'll record video. For actual graphics, program over here called GIMP. So GIMP, don't ask me what it stands for. So GIMP is basically Photoshop. It's free Photoshop. Again, has a massive user base, so lots of people on Google can, help you out with exactly how to use it. But this is how I do all my overlays and everything. Now you can cheat, and by cheating, what I mean is if you are saying, I don't know that I can do like a Photoshop type of thing, but I want to be able to have custom overlays. Here's a neat little hack for you. You can open up PowerPoint, and as long as you use the widescreen PowerPoint format, not the one that's 3x4, but whatever the other one is that's widescreen. If you do that and you build out some kind of graphic that covers the entire screen, then you can highlight everything on that slide, right click, and one of the options is save as picture. And if you select that, it will save a picture that looks like that. And without having to use any Photoshop or anything, you can do everything right in PowerPoint if you really want to. It's not going to look the absolute best in the world, but it works. So quick and dirty, just use PowerPoint. You don't have to worry about this whole GIMP thing at all. The other thing I have is heavily rely on Google Slides for sermon notes and whatnot. In addition to that, any graphics I've already made. This is what I have in the upper left over here. So when I'm recording, these are the things I usually have out. A lot of times, if I already have all my graphics done, I'll just close out GIMP and not worry about it. But you do this, and you got these 4 things open, and you can kind of do anything you want. You want to be super lazy about it. If you're very confident, you already know what you want to talk about. Don't worry about having any of these open, and only open up OBS, and that's perfectly fine as well. But again, the bottom line is that when I look at the screen, none of these programs cost me 1 red cent. They're all free things. So we've gone over hardware, we've gone over software. Let's talk about actually recording the video. Now, I already mentioned that when I'm recording a video, I typically have certain things that are on my screen, right? Well, here's a little life hack for you. So when you're talking, you can't look at your screen, because if you are looking at your screen, then here's what you're going to get. And you'll probably be able to see this on the camera. So see, right now I'm looking at my slides on the screen. And I mean, I know that just now I even just turned my head, but even if I don't, if I look right at the camera and I do this, you can probably see that my eyes aren't really connecting with the lens. So anytime you're talking to the camera, you have to fight the urge to look at yourself. You want to look right at that lens and interact with it as if it was a human being. It feels super awkward when you first do it, but after you do it a few times, you'll start getting very, very accustomed to it. Now, the other thing when it comes to recording, and another little life hack here for you, is being expressive. So one of the things you'll see me do a whole lot is I'll talk a lot with my hands, and I'll sit here and be very emphatic about how I talk about things. And part of the reason for that is because it helps to convey a level of emotion and personality that you might not normally get because you're not sitting here face to face. The other thing too is that when you talk, you can't talk with your hands as if you were briefing to a large room. So if I'm talking to a room, I'm probably down about right here, and I'm probably doing this. So what you want to do is you want to kind of do like the Donald Trump. You want to talk kind of like this, not that stiff, but you do want to keep your hands kind of like up, and keep in mind, like, I have a camera, I have this box, and I'm trying to operate inside of this box. So if you do that, you're looking right at the camera, you're being a little bit exaggerating with how you move, and you're keeping everything inside of this field of view. Do those things, and you'll have something that is pretty engaging, and that honestly most people can really pay attention to. So now what I want to talk about is audio a little bit. So as we talk about audio, I am going to actually open up another program. So this is another piece of software that is free, and it's called Audacity. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have actually already recorded a video for church this coming Sunday, and I am going to import that video clip. Now, I'm not going to go through and give you a complete tutorial on how to do everything in Audacity, but I want to at least show you kind of in general how I handle this. That's my audio clip right there, and I'm going to open it. You're going to see this load. Now, what this is doing is it's actually stripping off the audio from that video file, so that now you have your video over here in one file that still has the raw audio in it, and then you have a separate file that's just the audio itself. That'll become important when we go to edit because we're going to line the things up. I apply a couple of filters. Typically when you're doing audio stuff, some of the things I've looked up have talked about wanting to bring up your treble a little bit. You can kind of see here the waveform that I run, and it's pretty aggressive, like increase on the high end for the treble. I add a little bit to the low end just to kind of fill out the audio a little bit, and I am not an audio person. This is just kind of what sounds good, at least to me as it comes across. So, you know, you apply these filters and then all of a sudden everything sounds a little bit better. There's also something that I've noticed as well, that is the compressor, and my compressor is not quite as high, but what the compressor is going to do is it's going to sit here and make everything sound a little bit more consistent across the board, so you don't get some of that fade in and fade out. This is particularly nice if you have a tendency to kind of move, you know, just a hair closer and a hair further away from the microphone. Audiophiles, I am well aware of the fact that I am just absolutely butchering how all this stuff works, but I'm trying not to make this like an audio tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and extract this. Okay, now that we have our audio put together, now what we're going to do is get into the fun stuff, the video editing. So in doing this, there's a couple of different things that I've noticed that kind of work for me. What do I use for video editing? Well, I know a lot of people will have like their fancy MacBook and they can use, I don't even know what it's called anymore, if it's iMovie or something else, but you know, they use the built-in tools. I have had a lot of success using this program called Shotcut. So Shotcut, once again, is an open source piece of equipment, and it is something that will allow us to be able to bring in everything we need, have a lot of flexibility in terms of how we output things, and then you know, export some kind of video suitable for YouTube. Video mode I have set for 1080p against full HD, and then 30 FPS. When you're recording videos like this, you don't need it to be 60 FPS. You know, it's important to bring up, because if you are using, you know, one of these guys in order to record your video, they're going to default at 4K or 8K at 60 FPS, and that is way overkill. You don't need that. You're going to end up with a video file where the raw file by itself is multiple times larger than this entire thing we're going to edit together. So you don't need it that big. Full HD is perfectly fine. What do we do when we go into Shotcut? There's going to be this playlist thing here, and then we are going to go into our folder where we have all of our stuff, and we just start moving things over. So what I want are these PNG files. I have this MP3, which is the audio we just ripped, and then I have the original video file. So those are the basic things that I have, and I'm going to move those things over. Now, at this point in time, there's a couple of other things I typically pull in. Okay, so I've just gotten done pulling in a few things just to make the video pretty. So the first thing is I have this item 6 and item 7. Now these are banners that will pop up at like the bottom of the screen and say, you know, Pastor Joseph Pack, the Well Community Church. And then what I have is I have an end card that is appropriately called end card. It just has some additional information about where people can find resources. The final thing I have is this particle effect. So let's go ahead and show what that looks like. So we're going to come down here, and you're going to see that in Shotcut, I just right-clicked and added what was called a video track. You know, had 2 of them, and then added an audio track. What we're going to do is we're going to have this little clip in the background. So this is that little animation we were just talking about. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to cut it. I already know that I typically let this title card stay up there for about 10 seconds. So I'm going to go 10 seconds in, and then I'm going to cut it. And there's also a hotkey that's an S. So if you hover over most things in this program, it has that S in parenthesis, and that'll tell you it's a hotkey. So I'm just going to hit S, and then there we go. So we have my little clip. Now I'm going to get my title card. Watch this. This is cool. Now, if I play this, you can see the animation behind the image, and again, it just gives a little bit of motion to something, so as people are staring at something, it's not just a stagnant picture. So the other thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add like a little fade in and then a little fade out. So you see how I put my mouse over here towards the end of the little timeline, and a little black bubble, I don't know if you can make that out, popped up. So I'm just going to pull those in and pull them out. What that does, it actually adds something called filters. So in Shotcut, all of your effects you're gonna have, besides what you actually just pulled in, is what is called a filter. Some of the things like what I just did is a shortcut where it automatically applies a filter, but filters are how you're gonna do things. So I just clicked on filters and opened it up. There's my fade in video, fade out video. It also adds this thing over here that's an audio. Now there's no audio to this picture, so it doesn't really matter. You can delete them, you can not delete them. I usually delete them just to clean it up. But then there's going to be this thing at the bottom that says adjust opacity instead of fade with blacks. Sometimes what will happen is you'll get this weird thing where when you fade in and out a picture, if you don't adjust how opaque the picture is, then it almost like will chuck a shadow on top of your picture in the shape of whatever your thing is you're going to put on the screen. I don't know, it just doesn't look good, trust me. So I'm going to go ahead and add a fade in as well for the thing at the bottom, because that is what is all the way in the back. It's the rearmost thing that's playing. I'm not going to select this adjusting how opaque the image is. I just want it to be normal. So then you have, there you go, there's your fade in. It looks good, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our video and our audio. So here is going to be our first instance of Joseph doing something that you may not have to do, and honestly, if you set up your stuff correctly, then you shouldn't have to do it. Have you ever seen somebody, when they're making a movie or they're making fun of people making a movie, use those little, I forget what they're called, they're like clapper boards or whatever, that, you know, you hit it real hard when they say action and they clap it. Well, the reason why people do that is because that indicates to an editor where they need to like begin editing everything. But the same principle applies when it comes to trying to sync up your audio with your video. If you pull everything from your webcam, or if your webcam or / capture card are synced up correctly, which is really the right way to do it, then none of this is necessary. You can literally just get everything and put it on top of each other like I have right here, and everything's good. But sometimes you end up with things being a little bit different. There's a couple little spikes here that you can see. See these little spikes? Those spikes correspond with me clapping my hands. That is my makeshift clapper. So you can see right here where, did you hear that? So I don't know if you could hear that or not, but that is my clap starting. But then in the video, that's where my hands come together. So you see there's actually something is out of sync in here. So all I do is right here, my hands are together. Well, my hands are together where the clapping should have started. So it should be like this. And there we go. Sounds like it's all synced up. So let's look at it. Up. So you know what? I'm going to leave this in. I'm not even going to edit that out because that's an important lesson too. So because we're taking the audio from this audio line and not from the video line, then we need to come over here on the left where it says V1, and we need to click the little speaker so it mutes it. That's what was happening there. So let's try this again. You'll hear that little clap, 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 clap will not be there anymore. There you go. That looks like it's synced up pretty good. And let's see if we go over to where I start talking.
In preparation for the coming Christmas celebration.
Looks pretty good. So that's all synced up. So now what I usually like to do is go over here to where the video starts and go ahead and split your feed at the same place. And now I have a nice, clean, even cut where everything is synced up and the audio and the video and everything look like they're together. So it's beautiful. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try putting the video together with the fade in that we just put previously. So what you do in Shotcut is you just grab this line and you yank it over a little bit. So you make that little overlap and you'll see this little symbol pop up that looks like a little X with some purple and blue. There you go. So now it faded in. Looks great, right? So now what I'm going to do is go over here and grab my audio that we had just a second ago. And we're going to move it over, and all you're going to do is you're going to line it up with where that little box starts. Now, if you have this thing that looks like a little horseshoe magnet selected, it will snap things in there, so you don't have to be super precise. You just get it real close and it'll snap it where it needs to be. Remember where I was talking about these little dots that pop up and how that will make it both a fade in visually, but then also to make it fade in audio? Well, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to make it so that the audio kind of fades in, and that way even like the little bit of static you can hear in the background and everything fades in gradually. So
in preparation for the coming Christmas
and that's nice. That's really nice right there. This is a little personal touch. You don't have to do it. So I come up here and I add a filter. So that's what I'm doing. Going to filter, click the little plus sign, and then I'm gonna go to this thing called vignette. Now, any video editing program I've seen has some version of this, but I go into this and I happen to already know that my settings I go for are 60% on the radius and 500% on the feathering. All that does, especially in like a talking head video like this, it makes it so that the focus of the person is right there kind of in the middle. So that's what it does. It just kind of frames everything out a little bit. So that right there is how you get the video on there, honestly. And when it comes to putting in the little discussion cards in the middle of your video, all you're going to do is cut everything and kind of move it apart and then add that card in there the way we did this intro stuff. We'll show you that here in a second too. First, let's go put these banners in here. So again, what I usually like to do is kind of do the "hey, this is why you're here" banner, and then after that I like to put in the "and this is who I am" banner. So each one I like for it to be about 5 seconds. So there we go. That one I got at almost exactly 5 seconds. We have it on there and that's good, but we want it to fade in and fade out, right? So what do? We come up here, we can either add the filter manually, or we can grab this little dot when we hover our mouse over here and pull it out on either side. But you know what? Let's add it the old-fashioned way. So let's go up here to add a filter, and we're going to go to fade in video. So there you go. And what you see, interestingly enough, is you see it adds this little shaded section right here for you. So, again, it's just two ways of doing the exact same thing. So then we're going to go fade out video and adds it onto the other side. Now I'm going to show you as well right here what happens with that opaque aspect. So if I take that off, what does it do? And what you're going to see this dark banner that pops up. It will pop up that little shadow instantly if you don't adjust this. So if you adjust that, and I'll do it again, no more dark shadow. So that's why you always want to have that selected. So the other thing too is it's in the middle of the screen, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to sit here and go and apply another filter. It's called size and position. Now if you know exactly how many pixels something should be on the screen, then you can just type that in. Now I happen to know how many pixels I want it to be, but if you don't know that, then what you can do is come over here and just grab this thing in the middle, and you can move it around anywhere you want, and that's where it will be. Now I happen to know that where I want this thing is at 0 and 900, and I know that's exactly where I want it to be. If you're trying to do a position for something, then I encourage you to know exactly where you want it to be like that, because otherwise what will happen if you try just eyeballing it, you'll end up with what I call dancing banners, where as soon as one banner fades out, another one fades in, it'll be ever so slightly off from the first one, and so they have this appearance that they're kind of dancing around. We ever fade in, we ever fade out, it looks like it's working. It's in the right place. Just have snapped his fingers. After 5 seconds, it goes away. So that's absolutely perfect. Now, that was a number of things. I think what you find out is if you were doing this without the video, it would take you all of 30 seconds to do all that. But let's say that was a lot. You don't want to do that again. Well, fortunately, Shotcut has you covered. So over here, there's this thing that says copy the filters. And what this does, it might shock you, is it copies the filters. So we're going to click on that, and all of a sudden, see this thing on the right just made it so you can select it now that says paste filters. Well, we're going to go over here to our other banner, and we're going to click paste filters. And guess what? Now it's set up exactly how you want it.
Answer this question.
So what do we want to do next? Well, now let's go and get those stupid title cards in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit. I happen to know that when I stop talking is where those title cards play in. Now, if you're going to attempt to do something like this, where you're going to want to pop up a screen with discussion questions or a Bible verse or something like that, I encourage you to have like a long gap of time where you don't talk, because you're going to be able to do like what I'm doing right here, where you look on the screen and you see where the audio just goes silent. As soon as that happens, that's where I want to drop that in. So we're going to sit here and figure out exactly where it stops.
Scriptures were trying to tell them the whole time.
Good air quotes, Joseph. Now I stopped it just, a second, half a second or so after I stopped talking. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to clip it again right now. I'm going to go over to where I start talking again, and I'm going to clip it again. So now I'm going to delete that big silent period, and then I'm going to come back over and I am going to do like what I did when I made the intro. So what did I do when I made the intro? I added my visual eye candy animation, and you're going to see I didn't like measure exactly how long it was. It's because after you cut it, you can always go in here and then grab the end and kind of move it side to side. You can see I cut it at like 13 seconds. That's a hair long, so usually I want to be closer to 11 seconds. 11 seconds allows you to have, like half a second of transition on either side, and then 10 seconds of having the questions up on the screen. So I'm going to move that down. I'm going to go ahead and get my first set of discussion questions and put that down. Make it last as long as it needs to be. And now I'm going to do something very similar to what I did for the title screen. I'm going to pull this thing over that way so I get that transition. I'm going to fade the audio out. And then I am going to get this picture and line it up. Pull that fade in for the picture. Make certain I adjust how opaque it is. And now I'm going to come over here and grab the other side and pull it in. Before we can actually do that little thing where we just kind of pull one bar into the one before it so that there's like the little transition, you have to remove all the blank space. So if I try starting the clip here and then just moving it over, see, it won't let me make that transition. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to pull it all the way over. There's a way to cheat. You can right click this gap and click remove. And there you go. It just brought everything all together. So now we're going to move everything over a little bit. And now you have that little transition. So we have the transition in and the transition out. Another pro tip for you, if you want to make certain that your fades look good, generally speaking, you want the fade of the top and the fade of the bottom to be about the same. So if we look at this right now, you know what? Let's go ahead and just not skip this step. Let's move the audio over so that it's all synced up. And it snapped right there. And now, as we look at this, we're going to have me talking, my air quotes, and then you fade. You have the screen. People can pause the video. They can talk about everything that they see right in front of them. And then after 10 seconds, it is going to fade back in.
A lot of people
just like that.
When they look at the individuals,
So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to go ahead and finish putting in the next discussion card and then also putting in the end. I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'm going to come back and show you very briefly how I do audio for like background music. Okay, so at this point I've put in my end card here. So at this point in time, I mean, you have a complete video. I mean, I could export this if I wanted to, and it would be perfectly fine. It would be pretty and it would be functional. So that being said, why have any background music at all? Well, the reason why you want to have background music is because it makes it feel a little bit less anxious. So especially in something where you want people to kind of relax and be in a mood to have a conversation, like you're, honestly, like you're just kind of hanging out, that background music can really help to set the stage for the fact that you're having this kind of video. Adding background music is not that hard, and especially not that hard to make it sound better than, having a boombox in the background. YouTube Studio will actually have an audio library associated with it, and it's great. It actually allows you to be able to search by like the mood, by the genre, all kinds of filters you can apply to find something that matches with whatever you're going for. You download it as a MP3 file, and then you can use it however you want. So I've actually done that already. I have certain files, as you might imagine, that I tend to go to over and over again, and so I have those over here on the screen. So here's what we're going to do. To add background music, I tend to create two different audio channels. That becomes important, because what you're going to want to do is this. Let me see if I can zoom out on my timeline a little bit. Everywhere there's a gap of me talking, we want things to go up, and then we want them to come back down. And I found the easiest way to do that is to actually have the audio files on like 2 different lines, so that way when it goes loud, you put it on one line, and when it gets quiet, you put it on the other line. And that way you can kind of keep them straight, and it's easier, I feel like, to lay them on top of each other. So I'm going to show you how I do this. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go into this very first file and rewind my thing all the way at the beginning. So we're going to get Lauren's song right over here. And just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and apply a filter. So this filter is going to be called gain. This is how you're going to turn the volume up and down. I have found, for whatever reason, that -5 tends to be about right for a lot of these things that come out of the audio library in terms of your loud. And then usually somewhere around -18, kind of plus or minus depending on the song, tends to be good as far as your background music. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in here and we're gonna clip the clip towards the end of the transition. So then I'm gonna move the rest of the file down here to the bottom line. And remember how I said anything you clip, you can grab the end and you can pull it. So I'm gonna grab this and I'm gonna pull it. There we go. Adjust. So it doesn't matter how much it overlaps, it just needs to overlap. Because we're gonna take this guy and then we're going to go up to this filter, this gain filter. And we're going to change this down to -18, like we were just talking about. So now, if I were to play this, it would sound like this. So we have this kind of playing. Everything looks good. Here's the problem.
In preparation.
Did you hear that? It just went bam, and it just shot down in volume. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to want to fade it out. And remember what we can do. We can always get that little black bubble and we can pull it out. And now what you get is loud.
In preparation.
And it goes down slowly. So that's what we're after right there. So you can see before I get to my discussion, this song ends. So you can do a couple things. You can add a different song. I tend to just grab the same song, especially if it's all within the same like section of my clip. And I tend to just pull it in like that. So let's hear where the song is and see where it kind of makes sense to line it up.
The actual celebration of the Christmas holiday itself. Well, to answer that question.
Okay, so it sounded like the beat kind of like resolve like right there. So I'm going to go ahead and snip it right there. Pull the other audio in. Make certain to apply that filter again to make it a little bit quieter. We said we were at -18. And now you can fade them together. So if you wanted to make that last clip a little bit longer and then overlap them so there was a fade, you could do that if you wanted.
Celebration of the Christmas holiday itself. Well, to answer that question, we have to look at what was actually promised to God's chosen people.
Okay, yeah, see, so that works right there. So now that brings me all the way into the first discussion card. So here's what I'm going to do. I go towards the end of the transition again, cut it, go over here to the beginning of the video transition, cut it, move my middle section up to the top because I'm going to make this loud. I want to give it its little fade in and fade out tails. So let's pull it in one direction, pull it in the other direction. And remember, the reason why this works, why overlapping your audio clips works, is because since all I did was effectively, if you think about it like a photograph where you crop a photograph, I'm basically just cropping them so they sit right on top of each other. So that way, what you're looking at is where they line up perfectly. One's just a little louder than the other. So if you think about it, if I were to say that my hand back here is the quiet clip and this is the loud clip, I am lining them up and then I'm making this one just a little bit louder. So you don't even see the hand in the background, but then as soon as I take this one away, you're left with the quiet guy. So it means the music is actually lining up. The volume is the only thing that the listener actually perceives. So now we are taking this clip. We're going to increase the volume back up to -5 because that's where we've been putting it. And here's what we're going to see with our fade in and our fade out that overlaps perfectly with the quiet audio.
Scriptures were trying to tell them the whole time.
See, you couldn't even hear the transition. It is a good beat.
You know, a lot of people tend to read.
Yeah, so that's good. So now I'm going to go in here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to add my, as soon as this one is over, I'm going to go ahead and fade it into my next song. And now I'm going to sit here, and since the other song is fading out, I'm going to have them overlap just a hair, and we'll end up with this.
Christ said when he was walking on this earth. But none of that is the case. I mean, the reality is that the Bible
Here,
is a book.
you hear the transition, a new song. I'm going to do like what I did before. I'm going to sit here and actually cut off the recording, and then I'm going to add the audio and then come back in when we go to actually export it. Okay, so I'm back. I've just finished putting all the editing in for the audio, and at this point in time, if we take a step back and we just look at what we have here, I mean, we have an entire video. We have an intro. We have our little title banners that we put on here for who we are and what this thing is. We have, a little bit of customizing around the video itself so that, it looks kind of pretty and it focuses in. We've optimized the audio for the voice. We've put the background audio, including kind of the ups and the downs. So this is pretty good. Anyway, that completes it. You've done the editing, so good job. If you've, made it this far, then you are way above 99% of people. So let's get this sucker ripped out and rendered. Now, rendering. Fortunately, Shotcut makes this very, very, very easy. They have this setting over here called YouTube. Once again, if you are a pro, you're going to go, oh man, there's tons of things you need to optimize and all that. And yes, you're absolutely right. And I will say, if I were to sit here and click on the advanced settings, I've gone in here and tinkered with mine a little bit to make it work on my computer a little better. But if you don't want to mess with any of that, click YouTube and export file, and you are good. Your computer is off to the races. I'm going to save. And bam, the computer is going to start working. So what you're going to see is over here on the right, you're going to see my jobs are going to start, spinning. If you could hear my computer, it's starting to take off a little bit here. Just a quick little note on rendering. So the way your video renders and the performance and everything is going to be based on a lot of things, but the long and short of it is that if you have a better processor, mainly better meaning like more cores in your processor, when people say it's an 8 core, it's a 6 core, a 4 core, then it's going to do better. Now, the reason why I mention this is because if you are editing on a laptop, you may have a very fast processor in your laptop for gaming or something like that. But a lot of times your processors that are in your laptops are built in such a way that they're a little bit more energy efficient. And what that means is that they may have a lower core count, or they might be throttled down a little bit more. So in general, if you have somebody who has a desktop, it'll run a little bit better. That being said, if you don't have it, don't worry. It's not that big of a problem. Just go do it on the laptop and it'll run perfectly fine. You can see that for this video on my computer, which just for reference, I'm right now running a 9th generation i5 processor, so it's got a little bit of age at this point in time, with 16 gigabytes of RAM. It does have 6 cores in it, which is kind of nice. And this video that lasts, full HD, 30 frames per second at just shy of 12 minutes is going to take, about 4.5 minutes to render. So it's not that big of a deal. So we're going to go ahead and let this thing render, and then I am going to switch on over to the YouTube Studio interface and just kind of show you what that looks like. Okay, so our video has now finished rendering. So now all that we have to do is get it on the YouTubes. Here's the deal. When you go to YouTube, what you are going to see is you are going to see YouTube, right? Like standard YouTube. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over into YouTube Studio and just kind of take this opportunity to show you where that is. So you're going to click on your little icon up here. So here I'm on the church's account, and then you're going to go to YouTube Studio. And when you do that, it is going to pop up this dashboard that gives you a bunch of information about anything that you've put up already. What you can do is you can look at everything you put up here in the past by going to content. And then here you go. Here's all the videos in the past. And my word, do I have a lot of videos in the past. This is going to tell you anything as far as like information, your stats and everything. It'll also tell you if you have any restrictions. So one of the reasons why I mentioned using YouTube's audio library, which, oh, by the way, is right over here. You can see it on the menu on the left, that audio library. So if you use that, then you can avoid any copyright issues. If you try just using your favorite song, then what may happen is you may get a copyright claim. Now, if you're fortunate, then a copyright claim, more often than not, in my experience, just means that if you try to monetize the video, you can't do it, which for the church, it's not a problem. Typically, when I get a copyright claim on a church video, I don't even fight it, because honestly, it's typically because I've used a clip in there somewhere as like a sermon illustration or something. So that being said, if you use all the stuff through the audio library, should not have that issue, but this will show you if there are any restrictions. And if you hover over it, it will tell you what is, what's up, if the video is hidden or something like that. So let's go ahead and upload our video. So we're going to go over here to, in the studio, it says create. We're going to go to upload video and then select file. There's my home church video. And I'm going to start uploading, and it's off to the races. So it's going to go ahead and start uploading. Typically, it doesn't take all that long because it's not that huge of a file. But going to go in here and you add all the information, and then you're good to go. Okay, so now that we have the title and the description in here, you can see the video is still uploading. It's at 41%, just has 3 minutes left. So again, it doesn't take all that long. So in a moment, as soon as the video uploads and it processes, YouTube will try to automatically select a thumbnail. So almost all the ones that you can see in the background there are thumbnails that YouTube actually picked, and just looks through the video and just picks a random frame. So I have different playlists I keep things into. Part of that's to make the website work, but you do that. Now here's the other thing too. When you see this audience and you see this thing about kids, here's the deal. You want to say no, it's not made for kids. If you say yes, then it allows it to be played on like YouTube Kids, and there's certain requirements that need to be on there. Big thing that you need to know is it places additional restrictions on your video, and you don't really want it to say that. So you're just going to say no. There's these age restrictions and other things down here. Don't worry about any of that. That's more, I'll say, advanced user stuff. We're just going to click next. Nothing in video elements do you need to mess with. If you have something at the end, if you're watching a YouTube video and at the very end they have like, here's some suggested videos, you could add those elements right in here, but again, we're not doing that today. So again, all the checks, this is just after the video uploads, and when it checks for that copyright stuff, it's going to put the results in there. And then visibility. So basically, you just went straight through the video elements and checks without touching anything, and then you went to visibility. So we're going to go over here. We want it to become public. If you want to schedule the video for a specific point in time, like you don't want to be visible until that time, you can do schedule. But in reality, when I'm doing this, I don't care if anybody sees it before Sunday. I'm not trying to trick anybody, so you can do that. The status premiere is kind of a cool thing. So Facebook has a similar feature where if you want to record something, but then only and then have everybody get like a notification when it goes live, you can make this premiere. Scheduling a video to a similar thing. And what this will do is actually pop up like a little chat window so people can chat back and forth as they're watching it together. It's kind of neat. So if you're uploading like a church service or something, this is a neat way to do it so that, people will get that notification on their YouTube app saying, oh, hey, the Well Community Church is about to start their service. That's what that is. Again, that's not really how our home church videos work, so I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm just going to click publish. So as we click publish, we can see that it's giving me like the status of what's going on. Now at this point in time, here's the deal. As long as it's uploading, you don't really want to close the window because that's going to ruin things. Now, that being said, if it's already uploaded, which you can see in my case, it's already uploaded, I can close this out. I can close the whole browser if I want, and YouTube already has the file and it's going to go to YouTube thanks to it. But as if you have this window open, then you can just close out this little prompt, leave the browser open, and you can see my content just updated, and it's like right there. So that being said, YouTube kind of added this a little bit more recently where it tells you how long it's going to take to process it. You can see right there where it says processing up to HD 57 minutes. So where's kind of nifty is that if I were to click on the link right now, you can see it gives you this error message that says they're processing the video. In a little while, usually not very long, just a few minutes, it will actually allow you to be able to see the standard definition, kind of potato quality version of that video if you really want. And then shortly after that, it will have the HD version. As soon as this thing processes, which we're not going to wait here and stare at it for 56 minutes, at that point in time, you're done. You have your video that is out there for everybody to be able to see. So that's it. I know that was a lot. The raw video of this is almost an hour of this tutorial. So we'll see how much it is when I actually neck it down. But when you're actually doing it, it doesn't take that long. So minus the writing of the sermon and, figuring out what the discussion questions are, actually recording, doing all the editing and uploading typically only takes me about 45 minutes to an hour every single week. So it's really not that bad. Especially once you consider that I try to throw a couple little video gimmicks in there, and if you strip those out of it, I've had these things before where I can, crank these things out in 30 minutes. And I'm not necessarily a whiz or anything, so you could do it too. So that being said, I hope that you were able to get something out of this. Hopefully this video kind of comes together and is able to provide some value for somebody with a church or nonprofit or whatever to be able to do something on their own. And as always, if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me either through the Well Community Church or through my personal contact information. Probably in this case, just kind of through this YouTube video. Feel free to comment below. So with that, I'll go ahead and end it. Thanks for sticking with me. And once again, if this was helpful, if it wasn't helpful, let me know. Give me the feedback, because I'd like to maybe be able to show people more about how I'm able to use some of our digital assets in order to help do ministry more effective and make it more accessible for everybody, because after all, that's what it should all be about. So with that, God bless and have a good evening.